All right, this is CBE number 2. We're doing question number 7. So we want the sine to the 4th of x over 2. And we want to use the product and sum identities to simplify this. And our rules for simplification say you're not allowed to use more than one trig function. So you can't have a sine and a cosine. And you're not allowed to use any exponent bigger than 1. So you can't have a sine squared or a cosine squared. So sine to the 4th of x over 2 is really just the sine of x over 2 to the 4th. And if we put a 4th power there, it looks like we're raising the x over 2 to the 4th. So it's actually that, which is why we put the 4 on the inside, just to avoid confusion. Okay, so I'm going to convert this into sine squared of x over 2 squared. Okay, and if we look at our product to sum formulas, we're going to use this one right here. So the sine squared of x over 2 is really just the sine of x over 2 times the sine of x over 2. So in this case, alpha is x over 2, and beta is also x over 2. So using this formula here, I get the sine of alpha, the sine of x over 2 times the sine of x over 2 is equal to 1/2 times the cosine of x over 2 minus x over 2, which is just 0. We're going to subtract the cosine of x over 2 plus x over 2, which is just x. Okay, so now this is equal to 1. The cosine of 0 is 1. So 1 minus the cosine of x times 1/2. So we get 1 minus the cosine of x over 2. And remember, that is equal to sine squared. But in the original problem, it was sine to the 4th. So if I raise this to the 2nd power, I need to raise this to the 2nd power. And that gives me 1/2 times 1/2 is 1 over 4 minus 1/2 times, maybe we'll do it the other way. So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times negative cosine is negative cosine, and negative cosine times 1 is minus 2 cosine of x all over 2 squared, which is 4. Oh, and I forgot the plus cosine squared of x. I didn't teach that very well. So basically I did 1 minus the cosine times 1 minus the cosine, and I get 1 minus 2 cosine plus cosine squared. Okay? All right, now all of that is good, but I'm not allowed to have a cosine squared. The problem said simplify it until you don't have a cosine squared. So right now, if I divide everything by 4, I get 1 over 4 minus cosine of x over 2 plus cosine squared of x over 4. Okay? Now I need to focus on the cosine squared. I'm going to split that into, so cosine squared is equal to, cosine squared of x, is equal to the cosine of x times the cosine of x. So according to my product and sum formulas, alpha is x and beta is also x. Now I'm going to use this formula. So 1/2 cosine of x minus x is 0. And remember, that's just the number 1. Plus the cosine of x plus x, which is 2x. So distributing in the 1/2, I get 1/2 plus the cosine of 2x over 2. And all of that is equal to the cosine squared of x. So I need to insert this stuff right here. So my final answer is 1/4 minus the cosine of x over 2 plus 1/2 plus the cosine of 2x over 2. Divide each of those by 2. 1/4 minus the cosine of x over 2 plus, I should have, oh, that's a 4. Sorry, this is a 4. So plus 1/8 plus the cosine of 2x over 4. These combine to be 3/8. So 3/8 minus the cosine of x over 2 plus the cosine of 2x over 4. And if we look back at our problem, that's the answer. Okay, let me do another example. Let's do attempt 1. Okay. So here we have the cosine of x, sine of x, sine of x. And it doesn't matter which one I do. I can choose these two or I can choose these two. It's not really going to make a difference. All of those product to sum formulas deal in, well, some deal in sines and some deal in cosines. So I'm going to pick one that's going to get rid of either all of the cosines or all of the sines. Doesn't really matter. And notice the sine formula turns 2 sines into 2 cosines. So that's the one I'm going to choose. So I'm going to put the cosine of x times this. And I'm going to put this in there. Well, I guess the other way around. Okay. Where alpha is x and beta is x. So the sine of x times the sine of x is 1/2 times the cosine of x minus x, which is 0. So the cosine of 0 is 1, minus the cosine of x plus x is the cosine of 2x. Okay? So I'm going to put everything over 2. That's the 1/2. And I'm going to distribute this in. So the left side is the cosine of x, and the right side is the negative cosine of x cosine of 2x. And these don't mix. They're using different angles, so we can't mix them. And now we have a new product to sum where alpha, and you usually want alpha to be bigger than beta. So I'm going to write this as minus the cosine of 2x times the cosine of x. You want alpha to be bigger than beta so you don't end up with a negative sign. So, so this here, where alpha is 2x and beta is x, now we're going to use this formula. So that is 1/2 the cosine of 2x minus x is x, plus the cosine of 2x plus x, which is the cosine of 3x. So now all of this gets rammed into there. So we have the cosine of x minus 1/2 times the cosine of x plus the cosine of 3x, and all that's over 2. So I'm going to hit both of those with the divide by 2, and I get the cosine of x over 2 minus, distribute that in, the cosine of x over 4 minus the cosine of 3x over 4. And that will simplify down to 1/2 minus 1/4 is the cosine of x over 4 minus the cosine of 3x over 4. Let's see if that's what the answer says. All right, I love when I get it right on the first try.